teaching section, yeah.
Okay, then for those of you who are present, again, there's no magic to the sequence. Would anyone like to start? Otherwise, I'll just go. All right, and is it Hannah? Is it Hannah?
No. No. I can introduce myself. Cynthia Welty. I'm just a concerned citizen and resident, and I really appreciate the presentation we heard from Kauai Shrimp Farm from Sunrise Capital, because I eat shrimp. I like shrimp. I really like local businesses and I learned some things this morning about the sustainability of that business. And for me, then it's very straightforward that we should have a really good process to make sure that there's not problems in our local waters because of the effluent from the shrimp farm. We know that back in 2016, there was a major issue that was tied to the effluent with the dead fish. And I know that was a different owner, that was a while ago. And it just seems straightforward to me that we have a good company who should be glad to comply. And I understand there's some questions about, I don't get into it, but I understand there's some questions about the current NPDES permit, if it encompasses all that it should. And I just plead on behalf of our waters that we have clean water coming into the ocean, because as we know, those nearshore waters are where the fish breed. It's essential to the island. It's essential for the sustainability of the ocean that we have clean water coming into the ocean.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Berg, would you like to testify?
Really quick, Ryan said he still can't get on. Is there an option to dial in?
Yes.
Okay, let's take care of that.
You want me to give you the number?
Yes, that'd be great.
So we're addressing someone who has a problem logging in, so trying to get the message to them as to how they can dial in.
Is it possible to give a question to the gentleman who presented for the shrimp farm?
Only accepting comments.
Okay. So that means the engineering division won't be providing any information either?
Not at this time, yeah. It's a public hearing as well. During this process, we accept testimony.
You know, if there's time, perhaps you can raise the question that you'd like to ask and see, we can see if they'd like to provide additional testimony on that.
What I'll do is just make my questions on the record.
Okay, so you're saying as a member of the public, you have some questions
Yes.
of the permittee, and so you'd like to add, okay.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, he referred to the process of producing the best tasting shrimp and getting the.
Okay, you know what?
And I don't know how they do that without
All right.
engineering.
May I take your name and
Yes.
make sure I come back to you?
Yes.
What is your name, please?
It's Bridget, B-R-I-D-G-E-T, Hammerquist, H-A-M-M-E-R-Q-U-I-S-T. And I can explain when I testify as well.
Okay, we'll do that. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd like to suggest that Bridget continue on with her testimony.
Oh, instead of you.
That's fine.
Do you want me up there?
You've got the floor, yes, please, so then everybody can hear you.
Okay.
So along with the verbal testimony, we'll also need your written testimony.
Yes, I understand. By midnight tonight.
No, 4:30.
Oh, 4:30?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it just says the 13th, and oftentimes they allow the email testimony to go in anytime. I won't be doing it till midnight.
Do you want a chair?
Say that again?
Do you want a chair?
No, I don't need a chair.
Okay.
No, I just don't see well.
Oh.
I didn't see this up here, so that's why I didn't know. Okay, my name is Bridget Hammerquist. I'm a longtime resident of Kauai. I live in Kaloa, and I am concerned about our ocean. I do water aerobics 3 times a week, and the ocean, and in a formal class, and I love to swim, and I've done it all my life, because I was born here a long time ago. I'm a territory baby. But my concerns, and I'll get out some of my questions, and I apologize, I was a little late, so I didn't hear all the presentation. But the gentleman who was speaking for the shrimp farm, I guess he's speaking for the transition team. I don't know if the Lown family is still the purchaser that's taking it over from the Dutch operation of Sunrise Capital. I'm not sure what the details are, but hopefully we'll get that information too. The issue about perfecting the best tasting shrimp, and yet there's no genetic modification. I don't know how they do the engineering, and so that was the thing I was going to ask about. Mostly because I have a lot of friends that are Hawaiian, and they really value the opai, our native shrimp, you know? And so cross-pollinating or cross-polluting with local shrimp, indigenous shrimp, could change our particular variety of shrimp. And so that was a concern because the ponds now drain through unlined ditches to the ocean, and I know the larvae can escape the ponds when they're drained. And the big concern is the permit was for 7 million gallons a day of wastewater, and they want to permit up to 20 million gallons a day of wastewater. And you know, the question is why? Are they going to line the ditches? Have they been asked to line the ditches? Is that something that the department, some of these details, I didn't get it out of the material that is on the website. But a lot of, if that difference between 7 and 20 million is because once the ditches are lined, the sand won't be absorbing all of this environmental excrement that's going now from the ponds, because basically when the ponds are flushed, when they harvest and flush the ponds, there is a lot of poop in the bottom of the ponds from the shrimp. They make quite a lot of waste. And so that then develops bacteria and nutrification, and it contaminates our sea creatures. So I'd like to know if the difference between the 7 and the 20 million is because they're going to line, or are they thinking of ramping up? Why such a difference in the permit application process? And the testing, I think there's a real issue about this permit, and here's the really big issue. The Manaw Plains ditch system is contributed to by the shrimp farm and by the ADC produce operations, farming operations. It all drains down and goes through the Kinney dish and some others, that's one of the main ones, and then out over the sand into the ocean. But their DOH is doing a permit for the shrimp operation and another permit for the ADC operators, but yet they're all draining the same place. And it doesn't sound like the two permits, at least from what I could tell, it didn't sound like the two permits were taking the other operations into consideration, right? And so you're going to have this combined runoff, a combined, and different products, you know, different pollutants, obviously. There's pesticides, herbicides, then there's the shrimp excrement, and the shrimp treatment, pond treatment. And it's all going to drain to the sea. And if you're giving two separate permits, how do you separate this out? Who's considering the combined impact, right? And it doesn't look like that's being considered. So I'm concerned, like Cynthia is, about the preservation of the cleanliness of our waters, keeping our, you know, I've been in places and other places in the world where they're not so careful with what goes into the ocean, and you develop foam bands from the bacteria in the water. And I actually saw a foam band like that once off of the Hanalei side. So I know that we can only put so much in the water, and I'm very concerned that the permit should include all operators draining through the same ditches. It doesn't make sense to give separate permits, because the whole idea of a permit is to know what's going into the ocean. And at least as a member of the public, I can't tell that there's been a combined consideration. And so I'm concerned about the OPI being altered, by however they're genetically, biologically engineering the best possible shrimp. I don't know what the escape is to the environment. In the unlined ditches, it seems like there could be escape. Yeah, it's just, it's a concerning operation. And we have had fish kills out here, more than one. There was hundreds of fish strewn on the beach dead, and the odor was very bad, and, they were all very dead, and nobody could really explain how it happened or which operation was at fault. So I just encourage that more be done to look into it before a permit issue, and that whatever permit be issued has consideration and takes into account the other operator's discharge, because they're not two separate discharges that are going to be hitting our ocean. And appreciate your help in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Okay,
Ryan was able to dial in,
good.
so he should be available.
That's Warren.
Yes.
Okay.
By Warren.
This is number 639-2731.
I don't want to tell everyone his phone number.
Oh, Warren, are you connected now? Because we're considering having you present your testimony.
So I have to,
Want to ask if that's his number?
I allowed his mic so he unmutes, then he can
Star 6.
Okay,
star 6.
Warren, if you press star 6, you're going to be able to connect by voice. Are you with us?
Yeah, hello.
Okay, we can hear you loud and clear.
I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
make a testimony when I have an opportunity.
This is your opportunity. You're on.
Thank you very much. Hello, my kako. My name is Kawai Warren. I'm a resident of Kekaha. I'm also the kapena for Nakiai Kai, a group of Lavaya and cultural practitioners from the west side. Our mission is to protect our west side nearshore fisheries for the next generations. Members of my group have fished in these waters for generations to feed their families and their community. I have been fishing and gathering in these waters since 1982. After 2016, 2019 fish kills, members of our group have stopped gathering limo in the area because we were not sure it was safe for our kupuna and our families to eat. Prior to the fish kills, Kauaele was a refuge for baby fish. Moili'i, aholehole, ama, papio, ava, even Samoan crabs. Our kupunas also reference limu ele, which is a very hard limu to find that grew in abundance when the spring waters ran through Kauaele ditch, ran out of Kauaele outfalls. We have observed a decline in the fish population in our home waters over the years, which prompted us to do some research. During the plantation era and presently ADC GMO tenants use a lot of restricted use chemicals, atrazine, organophosphates, 2,4-D herbicides, just to name a few. About 95% of these chemicals use a restricted application near aquatic fish, surface, and groundwater. Studies have shown these chemicals have a direct impact on the reproductive organs of fish. The GMO companies apply restricted chemicals about 240 days a year near drainage ditches that end up at Kauaele outfall. Have these chemicals reached our groundwater yet and aquifer? The shrimp farm practices adds another level of contamination that has directly impacted our shore fisheries in the recent fish kills. The use of Clorox for sanitation purpose is deadly to our coral reefs. The effluent from their 40 ponds at 1.3 million gallons times 3 times a year is a lot of untreated effluents. I believe this This is enough effluent to require an independent wastewater treatment facility, which would protect our groundwaters, our nearshore fisheries, and our recreational beaches. Our nearshore fisheries will not thrive again until the chemicals, effluents, bacteria, and sediments are removed from our west side outfalls. The purpose of the proposed NPDES permit lacks provision to protect our ohana, our friends, from further fish kills, incidents of harmful bacteria, crustacean diseases, and sediments and nutrient pollutions. The proposed NPDES permit must be strengthened to address these concerns, alternatively denied. Just a quick shot on doing a little update research in here. I think this is worldwidelife.org, industries, farm shrimp. Quote, in tropical climates where most farm shrimps is produced, it takes approximately 3 to 6 months to raise market-sized shrimp, with many farmers growing 2 to 3 crops per year. A steady stream of organic waste, chemicals, and antibiotics from the shrimp farms can pollute groundwater or coastal estuaries. Salt from these ponds can also seep into groundwaters and on into agricultural lands, which is located directly across the road. This has lasting effects, changing the hydrology that provides the foundation of the wetland ecosystem. Quote, another one, this is Koff and Winston in 2011. When inadequate action is taken to disinfect this effluence, drainage of cultured ponds has the potential to release parasites and cultural species in the environment, thus offering a mechanism for parasite exchange from farm to wild organism. This area that we're talking about, corner crab, not even 10 fathoms from shore, lobster, all this cohono crab, all the stuff that we eat, not the stuff that we're going to sell and make money, the stuff that keeps our west side community healthy, keeps us sustainable. That's the important part of making sure that the shrimp farms, the GMO companies are protecting our water. I'm glad I'm talking to the clean water branch because that's what we want. We want clean water. Thank you very much. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr. Lebez, would you like to testify?
Well, my name is Gordon Lebez. I'm a retired family physician. I live down the street in Kekaha. I swim and surf in the waters here every single solitary day. And Dr. Berg and I testified at the original shrimp farm NPDES permit 20 years ago. We're with the Surfrider Foundation. We're the ones who sued you about the ABC ditches. I've been with the Surfrider Foundation for 40 years and since its inception, and in general, we don't like to see the ocean seen as a dump. We just don't like it. It's not a good idea. This NPDES permit is a permit to discharge waste on the beach. It's not an outfall, it's just a ditch that goes to the beach. And it's just not a good idea. There's plenty of land. You could do constructive wetlands, you could do other kinds of treatments. So we're hoping that you approve a really very, very strict permit, unlike the first permit. This operation has greatly expanded in the last 20 years. And I have to say I was very pleased to hear the gentleman from Sunrise say that they don't use genetically modified food because the parent company does, the company that owns it from the Netherlands. I have a radio show and I looked it up and they're a GMO fish company. So it's nice to hear that we're not doing that on Hawaii. And it's nice to hear they're not using chemicals and antibiotics and stuff. I didn't know that. Because the place has expanded so much, the local residents don't know what's going on. And that would be my last point, is I think we really need some sort of environmental assessment on what they do over there. Because if they're asking for a permit to dump stuff on the beach, we really should know what's going on. You know. I have friends who work there, so I have a little bit of knowledge, but I think the public needs to know what kind of operation they have. Thanks.
Thank you. Hannah, would you like to testify?
Sure.
Aloha kako. My name is Hannah Lilly. I am Surfrider Foundation's Regional Manager for the Hawaiian Islands. Surfrider Foundation is a grassroots environmental organization dedicated to the protection and enjoyment of the world's ocean, waves, and beaches for all people. On behalf of our Hawaiian Islands network, including 3 chapters and over 6,000 supporters, I offer my comments regarding the proposed Sunrise Capital NPDES permit. We have a long history of advocating to reduce and ideally eliminate the polluted flows from drainage ditches on the monoplane into the ocean. These outlets located along Barking Sands Beach represent a popular area for surfing, fishing, limu gathering, and other recreational and subsistence activities. The Kawaele outfall discharges directly into the surf break known as kinikinis, also affecting nearby surf breaks at Majors Bay and family housing. Not only are these surf breaks affected by the impaired water quality directly from the discharge, but from associated fish kill, health risks, including attracting sharks, which obviously make recreational users feel less safe. While we are grateful for the opportunity to give public comment regarding this NPDES permit, the proposed permit does not do enough to limit pollution and protect clean water. Surfrider asks that the following concerns be addressed and the proposed permit be strengthened or denied to avoid violation of the Clean Water Act. We are troubled by the weak water quality protections in the permit, including a lack of coordinated regulation with the monoplane ADC NPDES permit, a lack of comprehensive monitoring reflecting public health concerns, and lack of best management practices to address harmful recreational and environmental impacts, including measures to prevent fish kills. Nutrients and waste from the shrimp farm throw off the natural biochemical balance that safeguards our coastal ecosystems. The most visible indication of pollution are the multiple observed fish die-offs in recent years. Nutrient loading of the ditches and waterways leading to the ocean result in unnatural algal blooms. When the phytoplankton die off, bacterial decomposition sucks up all the oxygen, producing large amounts of carbon dioxide, increasing acidity, and leading to fish die-offs, including those in 2016 and 2019. Besides the clear pollution to the food chain leading to these fish die-offs is the release of more hazardous pollutants, including hydrogen sulfide, bacteria, and viruses when fish decompose. This, in addition to the viral and bacterial diseases, including Vibrio, that are also known to be associated with shrimp farms, create a situation that has a clear risk to public health. This permit needs to monitor bacterial parameters that are of critical concern to human health and safety, including Vibrio and Enterococcus bacteria. The whole purpose of an NPDES permit is to implement water pollution control requirements that actually protect human health and the environment. Instead, this permit falls short of any such preventative measures. This permit needs to include a stricter limit on the volume of discharge rather than just concentrations, stronger BMPs to reduce discharge, a plan for nutrient management, and installation of oxygenating mechanisms and fish deterrent devices in the ditches to ensure that coastal waters are swimmable and fishable. Mahalo.
Thank you. Kylie, would you like to?
Aloha mai kako. My name is Kylie Wader Cruz, and I'm an attorney with Earth Justice. Earth Justice is a nonprofit, public interest, environmental law firm. We've had an office in Honolulu for over 30 years, And for the past near decade, we've been partnering with Surfrider Foundation and Nakiaikai to clean up the ocean waters along the west side of Kauai, specifically the Mana Plain. We did submit written testimony yesterday, so I'd encourage you to read that carefully. And I do wanted to emphasize a few of these points here. Let me just start by explaining how the plumbing works in the area. The Mana Plain drainage ditch system drains through the ADC's Mauka agricultural lands and draws the water from the ditches through the Kawai LA pump station and into Canal D. The shrimp farm has its own set of ditches that also drain into Canal D. So we have combined discharge that goes through Canal D into Kini Ditch and into the ocean. And both the ADC Mauka agricultural lands and the shrimp farm contribute to pollution both in the ditches and in the ocean. What's lacking in the permit here is that we need limits and monitoring that take into account what both sources are doing individually and collectively. We need to avoid a situation where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing as far as how much the shrimp farm gets to discharge and how much ADC gets to discharge. So some examples of some inconsistencies here is that ADC's proposed permit only seeks to manage the discharge at the point that it enters the ocean without any flow limits or any limits on total suspended solids or biological oxygen demand. And it's not clear that the shrimp farm's limits take into account how much how much pollution is coming from ADC's lands themselves. It's particularly important to coordinate the regulation of both pollution sources because of the fish kills that have occurred in the area and the chronic violations of turbidity along the coastline. So my second point is related to the fish kills. In 2016 and in 2019, there were massive fish kills along the west side that resulted in thousands of fish dying, including food fish like mullet, papio, and a hole hole. And that was right around the time that the shrimp farm last renewed its permit. So the permit was renewed in 2016 and fish kills occurred in 2016 and 2019. There was a lot of speculation between the shrimp farm and ADC about what the cause was, a lot of finger pointing. The shrimp farm claimed that it was because of dissolved oxygen levels in the ditch waters where the shrimp farm ditches and because of temperature or nutrients, but there was no conclusive determination by DOH what the cause of these fish kills were. And the permit as proposed lacks any measures to specifically figure out what ADC's kuleana is and what the shrimp farm's kuleana is to prevent the fish kills from happening again in the future. Because again, they're both discharging to the same combined ditch. And just letting this slide for another permit term without specific teeth or measures to prevent fish kills is a fundamental violation of the public trust doctrine. My third point relates to bacteria, as Hannah touched upon earlier. The shrimp farm's permit contains no limits or monitoring for enterococcus bacteria or Vibrio bacteria. And this is alarming because enterococcus has been found in high levels from both the shrimp farm's effluent and from ADC's. And these levels are higher than the state enterococcus criteria. And with respect to Vibrio, at minimum there needs to be some testing that happens to make sure that the waters are free from harmful substances under HAR 11-55-40. And my fourth point is related to turbidity. So again, these waters, DOH itself has designated as impaired for turbidity year after year. So the 2016, 2018, 2020, 22. I've never seen a time when the waters weren't designated as impaired for turbidity by DOH. So what the permit's lacking for both ADC and the shrimp farm is specific best management practices to make sure that the sediment and total suspended solids from the ditches on the shrimp farm lands and the ADC lands isn't making its way into the ocean at harmful levels. The shrimp farm's ditches are unlined. The permit fact sheet itself says that the ditch that runs along the shrimp farm, it's essentially the settling basin where all the wastewater from the farm goes, and it travels the length of the shrimp farm, which is quite a long distance, and then is otherwise untreated before discharged into the Canal D and then Pini ditch. There should be lining required or some sort of management to make sure that the sediment and waste from the shrimp farm isn't making its way into the ditches and into the ocean. Related to that, the proposed shrimp farm permit lacks any specific weather-related requirements for water quality monitoring. It just says that testing needs to occur once a month or once a year. This is unacceptable with respect to turbidity because, as we know, after heavy rainfall events, sediment makes its way into the ditches and into the ocean. So if you're not testing during the wetter conditions, you're not necessarily getting an adequate picture of how turbid the waters are after heavy rainfall events. And that also could violate water quality standards. And my last point relates to something that Mr. Kekaha Warren said earlier, is that there are significant Native Hawaiian cultural practices taking place in the area where the shrimp farm and AEC discharges. Under the Hawaii Supreme Court's landmark Kekaha case, the state has an affirmative duty to protect traditional and customary practices under Article 12, Section 7 of the Hawaii Constitution. And so DOH should not issue a permit for discharges into these ocean resources until they do a full Kekaha analysis. That's a three-step process. The first step is to identify the scope of Native Hawaiian practices taking place in the area. The second is to identify the amount to which cultural practices are affected by the proposed use of the area. And the third is to take steps to minimize harm to TNC practices. There is no analysis in the fact sheet or in any of the permitting documents, and because of the resources at stake here and the potential impacts on Native Hawaiian culture and practices, then DOH should undertake that analysis before it issues a permit. So in conclusion, I just wanted to reiterate what others have said, that the proposed NPDES permit for the shrimp farm should be strengthened or otherwise rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Berg?
Aloha. I apologize to my friends in back that you're just going to see my rear end, the way they have to set up, but maybe if you look in the upper corner there. My name is Dr. Carl Berg. I'm a ecologist, marine scientist, environmentalist. I've been testing the waters on Kauai ever since I worked with the Department of Health in 1991, and have been extremely concerned about the levels of pollution going into the ocean on the west side from all of the ditches. I have submitted written testimony, and I will now just briefly summarize what I have submitted. First, because of the recent changes in ownership and the proposed aquaculture activities, and the history of the ownerships of the companies, I don't think that this can be looked at as a renewal of a NPDES permit, because it has to be totally revised because of the new activities, new species, or new emphasis on grow out as opposed to larval production. And those levels will affect the amount of pollution coming in. And I don't think that this renewal adequately addresses those changes in the ownership and practices. Second, I think that the NPDES permit that you have submitted here should basically be just discarded, and you should start again because you have proposed new NPDES permits for the Mana'a Plain ditch system and the County of Kauai ditch system in Keikiola. And so I think they should all be, and this is very important, they all should be integrated with one another, and they should all be comprehensive in their permit requirements. The reason for that is that over the years, we have been working with the Department of Health, sometimes through the legal system, to really clean up the water on the whole west side. And so you cannot have any one ditch system continuing to pollute while the others are being forced to comply and clean up. We know that the water coming out of the shrimp farm dumps into Canal D, which goes down and enters into Kinney and then out into the ocean. So we have the same problem as been mentioned before. Who is responsible for what level of pollution? And we have the past evidence of each calling the other the nasty polluter, when in fact both were nasty polluters. So in this case, as we have, as Surfrider has addressed the need for extensive monitoring programs for both Kikiola and the ADC ditches that were enforced by the courts, we think that the same sort of stringent requirements need to be placed upon the shrimp farm discharge. And in this case, the point of discharge is really where the water comes out of the shrimp farm. And I hope you will all have the opportunity to go take a look at the shrimp farm, because all the waters from the ditch go through a pipe and then dump into the Canal D. So waters, and you can have tidal influence coming up and down Canal D, but the discharge from the shrimp farm is that point of discharge. Now, part of the problem coming from the discharge is eutrophication of the waters in the ditches on the property and also Canal D. And this eutrophication causes a buildup of phytoplankton, which dies, causing deoxygenation and acidification of the waters, and you then have the fish dying, which makes it even worse, and then those dead fish, which may or may not be screened out, but the polluted water goes into Canal D, killing everything along Canal D, and then into the ditch. I personally have seen the effects of that after that last spill. So in this case, the shrimp farm must include monitoring for nutrient levels, how much nitrogen and phosphorus is coming out of the discharge, chlorophyll levels, to have an idea of what the phytoplankton growth is, and turbidity at the discharge point. Fourth, and I think this is really important, and having been out there at the shrimp farm, they advocate that the water coming out of their circular ponds through their pipes that has all been nice and clean, that water dumps into the ditches on the property. And the word they use, it then disappears. How does it disappear? Why doesn't it overflow the ditches? Because it percolates down through the sand into the groundwater and then moves laterally into the ocean. So it doesn't. All of the nutrients, all the chemical pollutants, any cleaning agents that they may use, any bacteria or viruses may eventually get sieved out, but the chemical and the nutrients do not get sieved out. They move into the ocean. These would not be measured by monitoring the outfall. This is very reminiscent of the Lahaina injection well problem that was solved at the Supreme Court level, where it said that the county of Maui is responsible for what they put into the ground and it leads out. All of the water, millions of gallons that go into the ditches, must be controlled. And that would require lining the ditches either with cement or vinyl or pipes, so that all of the water coming out of the growing ponds and the raceways and everything, that water must be controlled and must be cleaned before it's dumped into the Canal D. Finally, I'd like to reiterate that I think that this NPDES permit, which is a renewal of an outdated one because of new changes in ownership, that this should basically just be scrapped, that we should, or you should, look at integrating and making a comprehensive one for all of the discharges on the Minot Plain. I want to thank you, DOH, for having this public hearing. It's something we requested 3 years ago, and for drafting the complete NPDES permits for the whole west side. Aloha.
Thank you very much. We've gone through the initial list of people who have asked to testify. There were some people who have joined us after we started, so there may be people who have come that would like to testify, and we didn't hear about that. So can I ask, is there anyone who would like to testify? So we have 1, 2, any more? 3, all right. Why don't we start with you, and then you please give us your name and you can have the floor.
Hello, my name is Ross Kagawa. I'm a Kauai County Council member. I've been on from 2012. I had a break from 21 to 23, I believe. And, so I've been there for a while. The west side has always been my strength in regarding votes. So always finish maybe 1 or 2 from Color Hill to Kekaha. And my weakness is on the North Shore and to Kapaa. So I think I'm a good voice for the west side people. If they have complaints, they have concerns, I think a lot of times they'll call me even before your state representatives and our state Senate president. Because I guess we're, closer to the people that, the local people that live here. From 2012, sitting on a council, I've never really gotten concerns about, Kekaha shrimps practices. I think, the fish kill, I've heard about it. But I think, for me, when I heard about it, I think it was about, a lot of tilapia that was there, which for us locals is very invasive. Not to say we support something like that, but, the tilapia has done a lot of damage to Kauai, especially the mountain opu and the prawns that, we used to catch when we were younger. They're gone, but, so that's another thing. But, for me, I think, I appreciate the environmentalists, what the scientists have, to say. I am concerned for the environment. 4 generations here. Our family, I grew up with Robert, and, I know Landis well as well. And these are not the type of individuals that would allow pollution without addressing it into our ocean. These are good, solid local west side people that I'm good friends with and I grew up with. And I think what we gotta realize is that if we don't support something like Kekaha shrimp to continue, what are we encouraging for Kauai and the state about aquaculture, about agriculture? Are we satisfied with just buying shrimp from Vietnam, or those kind of places that you don't even know what goes into their shrimp farming practices, but because it's cheap and they sell it at Costco that you can afford? This is something that you talk about sustainable agriculture, sustainable aquaculture. These guys have done it. They've proved that we can do it on our small island of Kauai. We can, feed not only the nation. These top chefs from all around know about Kekaha shrimp, and you see it if you in certain places. So, it's about how do we work with them and address some of the concerns. Maybe it's opening up, helping them open up Kinikini ditch, letting the water flow as it should. But now it's so hard with government regulations to have a permit to open up something like that. I think all of us working together, finding solutions and allowing Kekaha shrimp to thrive. I remember 30 years ago they started it, and I doubted how successful they would be. But look at today, look at today, the success that they've had. So yes, about the environment, what can we do in a reasonable fashion, not to put our foot down and address everything that we think is brought up by environmentalists or what have you, and blame the shrimp farm for it. and you're gonna put them out of business? So I mean, I think it's about working together with Carl, guys, working together with, whomever, justice, and trying to find a solution that is reasonable. That's all we need. We need something reasonable, but we need sustainable agriculture for the future. My grandchildren, children now living here on Kauai, and, we can't just be reliant on tourism. I think, that for the island, we're headed for doom if we just continue that. So I'm encouraged. Alun Farms is now growing a lot of agriculture here on the west side. And I hope the shrimp farm will continue to thrive. I think we're proud of the shrimp farms, the local people that, live here and been living here for generations. All we want is, yes, as much as possible, address, some of these concerns and see if we can get the data to say, hey, maybe we gotta strengthen or what have you, but, let's just not pull stuff off the internet or what have you and blame them for everything, because I've been through that. We had this bill, this pesticide bill in 2013. It was about GMOs, and then it turned into a pesticide bill with the seed companies and what have you. And they brought up so much lies that were not true, and just, a lot of people that testified weren't even from here. How can we testify like that to people about an important issue that affects our lives when a lot of it is lies and accusations that are unfounded? So please be careful with what you hear, because what you hear, the loudest voice may not be what is the right voice. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Claire Tonry. I'm down in Waimea with my husband. I have been working on strengthening NPDES permits for, I think, over 15 years now. Down in the minutia, which is a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to submit written comments. So first, I want to echo everything that Earth Justice, Surfrider Foundation, and Ms. Hammerquist have spoken to. I do believe that there needs to be a comprehensive permit and permitting scheme for these discharges that are all sharing the same effluent systems in the end. But I also want to recognize that DOH has made some improvements from the prior draft of this permit that I do not think should be scrapped, but the issue I really want to focus on today is one where the draft permit, the current one, has not nearly gone far enough, and that's with respect to the core effluent limitations in the permit for conventional pollutants, nutrients, TSS, turbidity, biological oxygen demand. Those limits are really patently inadequate, and they don't have a legal basis. There's nothing reflected in the fact sheet that would suggest that they have a legal basis. As far as I can tell, these are performance-based limits, while the current performance is resulting in major impairments in what DOH has now identified as the receiving water. There is extensive problems with low dissolved oxygen, with high nutrient levels, turbidity, not only in the immediate receiving water, but in the Pacific Ocean itself, obviously is 303D listed. So there's documented problems, and then there's just obvious problems that the community has identified that are just obvious, even though there hasn't been a formal assessment of the receiving water and a formal listing. It's, there's enough evidence, and the department cannot ignore that there's an obvious water quality problem, and the permit itself recognizes that there are major solids problems in the immediate receiving water and fish kills, which is it's a catastrophic water quality problem, and it cannot be ignored just because there hasn't been a formal 303D assessment of the immediate receiving water. So all of that said, the performance-based limits are not an adequate basis. As you all know, under the Clean Water Act, it's required that the effluent limitations in the permit be the more stringent of technology-based or water quality-based effluent limitations. Technology-based effluent limitations, there's no evidence in the record that the department has based these performance-based limits on best technology. There's just really nothing there to support that, but it's also obvious that water quality-based effluent limitations would be more stringent than the performance-based limits. And so at a minimum, that's what needs to be included in the permit and the basis for the effluent limits. The department needs to conduct an actual reasonable potential analysis for these conventional pollutants, similar to what it did for some of the metals and the toxic pollutants. And they need to properly derive water quality-based effluent limits based upon the technical standards documentation in EPA's Permit Writer's Manual. It's just the same analysis, but it needs to be repeated for these conventional pollutants. I would just really strongly encourage the department to look at that at the same time, if not more immediately than it's considering a more comprehensive permitting scheme where you're considering all of the different contributions to these impairments from ABC and others. And lastly, I just want to, my career began working for a small business that makes pollution control technology. And I just fundamentally from that, I believe that robust environmental protection and local jobs are not enemies of one another, that improving treatment systems, improving water quality monitoring at this facility is actually something that generates jobs, and we don't need to be having a false debate about putting one over the other, because I think they both go hand in hand. Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you. Hi. May I get your name, please?
Yeah. Aloha kako, Sherry Cummings.
Sherry.
Malamahola nonprofit and kako Kauai political advocate, nonprofit primarily for Native Hawaiian rights and beneficiaries of the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. And I'm not really familiar. Someone just gave me this item around a week ago. And all I asked for is, I heard the lady speak in regards to Kawai Warren and his testimony asking for the Kawa'akai analysis to be done. And I just want to make sure, certain that history is not going to repeat itself again regarding the Department of Health's stand regarding Naue. That was a missed opportunity regarding our iwi kupuna and the Department of Health stepping in regarding something very different. But along the same line here, I just want to make sure that if there is an analysis done, that you folks make the scope wide, the net wide, so that there's more voices than just the west side. Because the misnomer of agencies, developers, business people is that the wahi that it's in, that people from that area become the experts in that area. Kinikini is considered an engine in our Olelo Hawaii. Look to the words, look what it means. Our families are from those areas as well. We go back almost 10 generations. And our voices should be clearly heard as well. Let's not just make only, whether it's a Moon Farms, ABC, or whoever, scope only people from this area. We come from north, we come from east, but we bring Ike to that body. So please, that's all I ask is if you guys go ahead and have this Kepa'akai analysis, which I hope will be part of the process, then make the upena large enough so that the rest of the other parts of the moku can be participants in this process. That's all I'm asking. Mahalo.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to present testimony? Okay.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Puanani Rogers. I'm from the east side, where the sun rises and the moon rises are. I feel a little bit out of place because this is not my ahupua'a. I come from Kealia ahupua'a. But I think I can perhaps contribute some mana'o. I was wondering what the cultural aspects of this project is. I kind of support it. I think it's a great economical force here, helping our economy on the island, and the shrimp is delicious. I do understand that there might be, of course, environmental issues, especially about the, what do you call the water, the changing of the water. I do have some concerns about farming, fish farming, shrimp farming, not being out in the wild where I think it is better for the conditions of the fish and the shrimp. But if there can be a way where we can do something that will be beneficial to the environment as well as to the business. And because we are in Hawaii, I hope that we think more in a Hawaiian way, in a cultural way, about running a business here. I want to see more benefits to the people of Kauai from this business. After all, you are in Hawaii and should be thinking more in a cultural and spiritual way on how you run your business and make sure that you have the mana'o of all the people that live here. It is a community thing, and it affects all of us, even if we're on the side of the island. And my first question was, what is the benefits to the Hawaiian people from this business? And if you can be more culturally based and spiritually led in what you do while you live here in Hawaii, on Kauai. Mahalo.
If we have allowed all people present a chance to testify, I'd like to suggest we take a recess for a couple of reasons. I want to see, check and see if we should do something else. But also I'd like to check to see if anybody else might want to give additional testimony. And also, may I ask, on the people who came later, we may not have gotten your name. And so I'd like to make sure that you have all kind of signed in so we have your name and the right spellings and stuff, okay? And then also, there have been some treats and coffee and snacks, so yeah, if you take, we're gonna take a few minutes. Why don't you stretch, grab a snack and coffee.
Sir, would you mind just checking to see if there's anyone online?
Good idea, good suggestion. Anybody participating virtually like to add, additionally testify, please use the raise hand feature. We did not get testimony from Bianca Isaki, who was not with us at the time. If she has joined us, she can let us know. Okay, why don't we take a few minutes and then we'll probably wrap up, but let's see.
They're at the point where I mean, you guys are about decisions. Who wanted to do a science fair? Well, you're gonna get sued. Take it all to the top. I showed that. My first
Okay, can we come back together for a moment?
Hearing about all the work that you do, try to put a face to the name.
Last call for testimony. If there's no one who wants to give an oral testimony, please remember you have until 4:30 to submit written. So please do that if you'd like. But I think we are at a point where we can conclude the hearing portion, and want to thank all of you who have come to share your concerns and thoughts.
Will we have some concluding remarks from DOH?
Any comments, any concluding comments from the department?
Definitely, thank you for coming, right? We appreciate all your comments. We'll digest those comments, and then we will provide a response to those comments, right?
You will?
We will. Yay! Don't we always?
No.
Maybe not immediately, but we will. Yeah, not immediately.
No, I know, but 3 years ago, we commented and nothing, right?
Oh, no, we still have those comments.
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't issue the permit, so we have those comments and we will provide, written responses to those comments.
okay, all right, thank you.
How do people get that?
We'll see. But you will email it or something will happen.
Okay, because you want to add your email address.
I have it and I did sign it.
All right, very good. Thank you. There's snacks and stuff for the road. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I think we can conclude the hearing. And thank you for those who have joined us virtually. Appreciate your joining us with the technology.
Did you say this would be?